January 11th, 2024, Sumner County Board of Zoning Appeals called to order. I see all members are present except Bruce Rainey. Mr. Rainey's out. Does everyone have a copy of the minutes? Any changes? Motion?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Josh, is there any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am, nothing. I think the agenda that made it into the packet, but the only thing it didn't have on there was we have entering of meeting materials, which is the next thing on your agenda. I don't think that was in the published agenda, but I did want to add that just for the record. But other than that, the agenda is as published.
Okay, I'm entering the materials into the record.
I've got some things here, Madam Chairman, as we normally do. Yes, ma'am. So we have the packet that was sent out to the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have the staff presentation,
Okay.
and we have the Sumner County zoning resolution. So just enter those items formally into the record of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Is that all? The consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
Yes, ma'am. The staff had a couple of items, and we're totally fine with the consent agenda being approved and approved if the BZA wants to do that. We did provide example motions to the BZA that are sitting on the table there in front of you. And one thing we do want to note for items number 3 and 4. Number 3 is continuation of conditional use permit for 475 Drive Fork Creek Road in Galvin. The codes office has let us know that there are some outstanding permits that these folks are needing to obtain. And so we did add a condition of approval onto that they do need to get those permits and COs from the county building codes office no later than March 1st, 2024. Likewise, for item number 4 on PD Branch Road, we were told by the codes office that they have yet to obtain a building permit for a structure that's on site, and so we have a condition there that they have to have that done, and CO if necessary, by March 1st, 2024 as well. If they don't do that, then we're going to bring these things back to you guys and put it on the formal agenda. But the consent agenda, Madam Chairman, if the board wants to approve it with those conditions added, I appreciate it.
Is there any, you wanted to say anything about the consent agenda? Motion to approve?
I move to approve the conditions that Josh described.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved.
And so for everybody that was here for the item on the consent agenda, 939 New Lane, 186 Wilkerson Lane, 475 Drive Fork Creek Road, 593 PD Branch, 986 Tyler Ford, 3803 New Highway 52. All those items are approved, and so y'all can leave the meeting if you want to. If y'all want to stay for the meeting, feel free, but if you want to leave, that your business is done before the board today.
First item on the regular agenda is Sumner County staff. Josh?
Yes, ma'am. Let me just get to it. Hang on one second. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The first item on the agenda is a staff request to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And before I get started, I did want to say and just point out to everybody, we are aware that the big screen, the projector screen is not working. Our IT department was not able to get that going for us today. There's some technical issues with the HDMI cable, so I apologize. We'll just have to read off these smaller screens, so I do apologize for that. But as I was saying, this is a request for a staff interpretation to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is one of the things in state law with the BZA, you guys are empowered to hear these kinds of things. If there's a question that arises, I think the statute calls it special questions. You guys can hear special questions that may come up from time to time. So this is a little bit of a unique situation, and not necessarily though, because we've had a very similar situation that came up a few months ago. It's related to folks that are making tiny homes on their property for sale, essentially. So you guys might remember a few months ago, there was somebody that came forward with BZA with a similar situation where we had one tiny home. This is the situation where there appear to be multiple tiny homes being made on site. And so we want to refer this to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get your input on what we should do. I've interpreted the code as best as I can with a suggestion, and I want to see if the BZA concurs. And so again, this is located at 3045 Tyree Springs Road, Hendersonville. As I said, request for zoning determination. The property owner is listed as Marie Locke. Again, what we're requesting is determination from the BZA whether the business being conducted on the subject property that's related to the manufacture and sale of tiny homes complies with the county zoning requirements. What happened was, I believe the staff a while ago, back probably in November, I guess it was riding past and we saw some signage that was posted along the road in front of the property saying something affected tiny homes for sale. And I'll show you a picture in a minute of what that looked like. We sent a use of property letter over to the applicant, and they did meet with us. Ms. Locke was very cordial and met with us on November the 28th, and they did turn in a zoning compliance form as well on December the 5th. When we reviewed the zoning compliance form and had some follow-up emails, we were just really unclear on what the scope of operation was and that kind of thing. So we felt like it would be good to refer this to the BZA, especially as it appears to be something that we may see more about in the county. So the subject property is right around 5 acres, just a shade under 5 acres. It is zoned rural residential, and the joint property owners were notified by certified mail, and it was advertised in the Housing News on December 28th. So this is an aerial of the subject property. You'll see a lot of the property is in the floodplain. The house itself is not. I don't believe most of what they're doing here with these tiny homes is in the floodplain. Some may be, but a lot of it is in close proximity to the house. As I mentioned, it is zoned rural residential. This is the public notice that went in the newspaper for this item. Sorry, I couldn't find it. Can't find it. This is the public notice that went in the newspaper for this item. We are required to notice all items to come to the BZA in the newspaper. So this is the zoning compliance form that was submitted, and I know it's probably hard to read up there for everybody. And so what it says is building tiny houses only 150 square foot home trailers, manufacturing tiny homes for sale. And then in addition to that, we were aware that there's a cleaning service that's operating on site. There's another business. Essentially, I think there's folks that this is like the operations center, and there's folks that work for this person, these property owners, they clean houses. I don't think there's anybody coming and going. The house cleaning business is certainly it would be a minor-based business that we can approve administratively. But the tiny home sales activity probably is not, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So we reviewed that, and we just let them know that we were going to go ahead and place it on the January 11th, 2024 BZA agenda to request an interpretation of this particular situation. And part of the reason for us doing that was we received the zoning compliance form on December 5th, and there was a follow-up email that said we're not running a tiny house business out of our home. We do not have contractors at our home working on these houses anymore. So basically, they said that they're done. We've gone back and taken pictures, and so anyway, there's just some confusion. So having done the BZA didn't seem like a good thing to do, just to clarify what's going on. This was when the staff drove by. This was on the side of Tyree Springs Road. You can see the guardrail there by the highway. And so this is what we call the signage. It's not your typical sign, but it is an advertisement that they had posted on the property at the road. They provided a site plan, and a little hard to see. Again, toward the top of the page there, that's the house, and then they're showing where they've got several tiny homes that have been made there behind it. That's pretty much what we saw when we went out and took some pictures. They did provide us with plans. I think these are some external plans that they've obtained from somebody, and they have folks that are helping them to build these things on the side. I think it's a very small operation, just a couple people that's doing this construction. These are the plans for the homes. This is the subject property here. Again, when we went out and took pictures back a week or so ago, the sign that we saw, the advertisement at the road, that was gone. They had removed that. So that should be noted. As you go down to the end of the driveway, you see where they're making these homes. I'm assuming that's what those are. And so when we look at it, what we would call this is construction sales and services business. It's about the closest thing I can find in our code to classify this under. It's not really, in a big scale, if there are hundreds of these, you'd be talking about an industrial use. That doesn't really, it's not logical in something of this size. And so we classified it as a building contractor. And so you can do those kinds of activities as a home-based business if you meet certain requirements. And for a minor home-based business, a couple of requirements. One, signage is not permitted. They take it down. They did that signage up. And then the other thing that's on the screen where it says is outdoor storage of any material used in connection with the home-based business, with the exception of one business vehicle, is not permitted. What that's saying is we can approve it at the staff level and administrative home-based business, like the house cleaning service. If they don't have customers or employees coming and they don't have stuff outside the house, we can approve that. Something like this, where they're making things and they've got the little structures outside the house, we can't approve that administratively. That's a business activity that's outside the dwelling. And so that has to go to the board of zoning appeals as a major home-based business. And so, Madam Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'll be going to get example motions there on the screen. And what those example motions say is basically, and this is just a suggestion to find that it either meets county zoning requirements, and that what they're doing now can continue, or that it does not meet county requirements, and that need to come back to you guys for a major home-based business permit. And that concludes my presentation. I think the property owners have signed up to speak.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak?
Yes, ma'am. We have the two folks that live in the property, Lorraine Locke and Dale Issenheiser. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. I apologize. 3045 Tyree Spring Road.
Would the owner come up, please? Is there anyone who would like to ask any questions? Do you have anything to add to what you've already turned in?
Not really. I mean, I really didn't want to waste anyone's time because it's over with after this, there's a few minor things that needs to be done and all three, if you come up here and take pictures and see that. Once they're sold, it's over. I mean, we're not building anything else. So I don't know if we need to even continue trying to get a permit or what's the next step.
Does anyone have any questions of the owner? I don't have any questions, that's okay. Anyone else like to speak? Marshall?
Yes, ma'am, just for informational purposes, the county adopted building codes, but it does not address off-site building modular construction. So what we did, the county commissioners adopted the standard, and it's for off-site modular buildings, addressing tiny homes. So this is the guidelines that codes has whenever they're building something in a factory where they have to have decals and stamps and independent inspections done. So I like to submit this to the record Yes.
Is that on wheels, not permanent fixtures, it's on wheels, so.
Portable,
Is that-
modular.
Do you have any questions, Marshall?
Tiny homes. That's
For you.
yes. I'm sorry.
I think that might need to, everybody's gonna need to sit down.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
I have a question for Marshall. When that's permitted, is that when it arrives at the location that it's going to be placed, or is it from the source, or is that, I don't know if that question makes any sense. How do y'all permit a modular home? Is it when it's situated on the site, or when it's prepared?
What we have been doing in the past is when they bring a modular home in or a modular building in and convert it to a dwelling, we require an independent engineer to go in and write a report, submit that report to us, that it basically complies with the minimum building codes. But going forward, they'll have a different avenue, and that is if they can provide an independent inspection decal when it was manufactured and manufactured, and we would accept that, then we don't have to have an engineer to write a report.
But if they have one of the decals, then when they come in to get ready to place one on site, they would show you the decal.
Yes, then nobody will have to go retro inspect it, they just inspect that exactly, we'll just take it from that point going forward.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any more questions?
Close the public hearing.
What's the?
Yes. First, I have a question for Josh. No, I have a question, that's okay, Chair, for Josh. On these tiny homes and mobile homes, you know, they're on trailers, and if I remember the definition for mobile home, they're one and the same as far as our code, right?
Yes, sir. So those, what they're constructing here, in the last gentleman a couple months ago that came before the board of zoning appeals, they were doing the same thing. I mean, the key issue is that those can't get a building permit necessarily. They're not, there's not many places in the county that you can put a mobile home at this point. There, in some circumstances you can, but a mobile home that comes from the factory, as Marshall said, is gonna have a seal on it, it's gonna be certified to meet all building codes and that kind of thing. These, if they're, you know, if they're being placed somewhere, we can't permit them without an engineer's inspection, and I think I'm right about that, Marshall, that's right. And so these are not, they're not habitable dwellings, basically. Yeah.
I guess I got a question for Josh too. If that's all right. When I heard the owners speak a little while ago, I kind of got the impression that they were almost withdrawing this request. Is that inaccurate or?
No, sure, no. And that's the part of the issue that we didn't get a request. Essentially, we really, you know, frankly, we had some difficulty figuring out, is there business, is there not a business? And so there's not, the request is from staff really for y'all to interpret, does what they're doing require a permit from the Board of Zoning Appeals? Staff is of the opinion that it does. And now that said, you know, if they're discontinuing business, once these things are gone, you know, the board can say, you know, follow up with them in 30 days or 60 days if y'all want to do that. We'd be glad to follow up. If they're not doing it anymore, obviously they don't need a permit. But if the business continues, I think they would probably need permits. And then, you know, the question would also become, you know, if these are structures that are being sold to folks, can they be permitted? You know, there's some questions there as well that might be outside of the BZA's jurisdiction, I don't know, but.
I've got a follow-up question to that, I'm just trying to understand. Staff's opinion is that if someone wanted to do an operation like that, they would have submitted as a major home. Is that correct? Or?
Yes, sir, at minimum, yeah, this kind of activity, typically, on a larger scale, they would have an industrial piece of property and they would be running they would be done within a building, probably, they'd be manufacturing these things like Fleetwood used to up in Westmoreland or something like that, which they make mobile homes. This is a little different than that. These are mobile homes, but they're not that kind of mobile home. But at the scale that these folks are doing it, I don't see any reason that what they're doing shouldn't be permissible as a major home-based business of the BZA.
Any more questions?
Now, I'll make a motion, example motion of two.
I'll second that. Does not meet. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion fails.
The next item on the agenda is Stephen and Ashley Winkleman requesting a special exception from county requirements related to design and occupancy standards for accessory dwelling units. 626 Northland Road, Portland, Tennessee.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize, we'll send you a letter to follow up on that tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This item is, to sum it up, this item is related to an accessory dwelling unit that has a door facing the road. And so I'll get a little bit more into detail on it, but that's the gist of what the issue of this particular application is. So that they're requesting an exception to our accessory dwelling unit standards that are Chapter 11 of our zoning code. The exception is related to the characteristics of this structure. What it is it's an existing building that wouldn't be allowed in its current location today, but was permitted legally in 2001. We have confirmed that. It was a garage, essentially. And what they've done is they started converting it to an ADU without permits. Codes went out there and checked on it. And to the owner's credit, they have promptly followed up and satisfied every request that we've made of them since then to get this thing permitted. Property zone for residential, contains 5.01 acres. Adjoining property owners were notified by certified mail. It was in the paper on December 28th. So this is the subject property. My electric board is not working too well, but the one I have actually won't show up on these screens. But it's on the east side of this horseshoe driveway is where this is. One thing, this is something, it's hard to see, and I was going to make a bigger point of it on the big screen, but we try to tell everybody that the tax maps that are on the assessor site are for informational purposes only, and they're nowhere near accurate. Sometimes I've seen them off by 50 to 100 feet. That's not the tax assessor's issue. That's something that comes from old deed data and all kinds of things. And sometimes in these more rural parts of the county, things can be off, and they're way off on this one. So that's a quick, as you can see, if you look to the east, there's one of the lot lines going through the house. So anyway, I digress there, but that is important for the BZA to remember that these things can be way off. This is the letter that was sent to the codes office. I'm sorry, letter from the codes office to the property owner, let them know that they had noted that they were working without permits. Codes office when I took this photo that day. This is the newspaper notice that was in the paper. They came in and filled out the zoning compliance application. We looked at it and realized it was an accessory dwelling unit and that they would require specific permits. They filled out, and we let them know that it didn't meet the requirements for ADUs because it has a door facing the road. We require ADUs. Basically, in an ideal world, the accessory dwelling unit is supposed to look like a garage, or supposed to look like just a detached building. It's not supposed to look like a separate house. So we do have some design standards that they need deviation from that I'll talk about in a second. And so that in their special exception application, they mentioned that. They also mentioned that the structure was there kind of in its current condition to at least some extent when they bought it. They didn't create this situation completely. And so, our zoning code provides guidelines for the approval of ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Up to a few years ago, you couldn't do them all in Sumner County, but that was added to the code a few years ago. And we can approve them administratively, provided that all of our requirements are met. And one of those requirements is design and occupancy standards. And so if one of our occupancy standards or design standards is not met, they have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get an exception. And so usually they need to demonstrate that there's a unique or different situation that causes them not to be able to comply, essentially. And so the specific standard here is again, chapter 11, section 1101. Right here you see where there's a star. It says design and occupancy standards, and one of them at B is any new separate outside entrance serving the ADU shall not be visible from the right of way. And so this one does. You see the front door right there is, you see the house back in behind it, and the accessory dwelling unit there is closer to the road. And so that does comply with that standard. That's not your typical accessory dwelling unit, mother-in-law suite type structure. Looks more like a standalone house, right? And so that's why it needs the exception from the BZA. And continuing on with that, says a special exception from the BZA is required that design standard can't be met. So, this is a plot plan that was turned in. Jim Carmen, a surveyor out of Charleston County, did a plot plan for these folks. And I zoom in just a little bit here. You see the accessory dwelling unit there on the south side of the lot. It does meet setback requirements. It does meet the front setback and side setback requirements. As the BZA knows, we don't allow accessory structures in front of the house in general nowadays. But that was something that was permitted at that time back in 2001. So this is the existing home. And then they provided floor plans to us for the accessory dwelling, showing what's going to look like. We have confirmed that there's more renderings of what it'll look like. And it's one of those additional floor plans. They do have a septic permit approved for the addition of the bedrooms that are going to be in this accessory dwelling unit and the house itself. So I think there's a 5-bedroom overall approval, which will accommodate both structures, both the house and the accessory dwelling. And here's from their recently approved septic permit. So that was approved in November the 20th. And there's some more pictures that we took. We do have our required findings, findings of fact for the Board of Zoning Appeals. The first one is that it needs to be designed, located, and supposed to be operated, so it's not going to harm the public. We don't see any reason that this would harm the public. This septic is certainly more aesthetic than anything like that, and so this is not going to have any safety or health or welfare issues. Will not adversely affect the property in the area in which it's located. A little bit of judgment call there as far as aesthetics and that kind of thing, but we don't see any reason that, based on the design that they're showing, that it's going to look nice and at a residential scale. We don't see any reason that it should adversely affect the property in the area. In general, these structures must be behind the primary dwelling, and entryway should not be visible from the road. Staff feels there is a unique situation in this one, though, that you have an existing structure that was not built by the current owners. And again, the septic permit has been obtained, so this should result in any kind of septic issues that are going to adversely affect neighbors. 3, conforms to all applicable provisions, and it does, with the exception of, as I said, the front entryway. That will require an exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And lastly, shall be located so as to be compatible with the surrounding area. And this is the uses in residential, and the area around it is residential. They will have to get all applicable permits and inspections by the County Building and Codes Office, and I'm sure the County Building and Codes Office may require, I don't know what degree of construction they got to, but the Codes Office may require an engineer's letter to be provided to issue a CO for this one. And so they've indicated that they do intend to comply. And so, Madam Chairman, there's example motions on the screen. 1, 2, and 3 here. The first one to approve it, find the county requirements are met, and to approve it with conditions A through C, and those are meet all of our other requirements on a continuing basis. For accessory dwelling units, B, obtain all the permits they need to get from my office and the codes office, and C, receive a certificate of occupancy. from the county building and codes department. The other two example motions are to find that our requirements are not met and to deny it, and three, to defer if there's questions or needed for additional information. And that concludes my presentation. I'll check and see if anybody signed up.
This is a public hearing. Does anyone want to speak on this matter?
Ashley Wing.
Do you have anything you want to add?
She's the owner, her husband is way back from, Adam Knoxville somewhere. I'm the one that's making that conversion and planning to live there. And they want us to move in and retire with them, and that's what this is all about. The only thing I find now, I understand that we're coming short on is the location of the front door in proximity to the street. And it just isn't workable in that now. We can't put it on any side of either side of the house because it's sticking out toward the street. It's visible from all three sides, and the only place is in the back. And it's just a long trek to the back, and it's muddy, and we're just asking, and the driveway goes right past the very front of that garage, as you can see. In fact, it's made so the parking is available right in front of that garage, is what we're asking you to approve. And that aside, we're not only meeting all of these requirements that are made, but my background is in construction, we're general contractors for California. We're doing everything at and above the requirements as far as the building codes are concerned. So we're gonna go from here to the building department, we hope, if you say yes to that, but otherwise, I don't know that it can be done. And locate the door on the very end of the building.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lincoln? Jim? That's all.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I close the public hearing. Discussion?
I just have one question for Josh for clarification. So the original permit was for ADU in 2001 or garage?
No, sir, the county didn't allow accessory dwelling units back then. We didn't allow them until 2020. And so the structure was just permitted as a garage structure, as an accessory structure. And so this is a conversion of an existing structure, which we see a lot. We get quite a few of these.
Anyone else? Questions?
We normally see these with hardship cases, right?
Well, the ones that make it to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is a very small percentage of them, most of them that we do, no, most of them, they're just kids moving back in with parents and parents moving back in with kids. We do require that it be a relative or guest, so you can't use a program unit and that kind of thing. And so that is in our zoning code. The ones that make it to the BZA, to your point, they're usually something like somebody's wanting to move a mobile home in or something like that, or they moved a shed essentially in, like a mobile shed from Lowe's, and they've converted it to a dwelling. Those we always send to the BZA. Most of them that you guys, they come through, we do, I don't know, your level, it seems like we do about half a dozen of these a month, that are just like I said, relatives moving back in, not necessarily a hardship or anything. Part of what we're seeing is it's just real hard to find a house nowadays, and so folks are kind of intergenerational living is becoming more prevalent, you know.
Close the meeting. Do I have a motion
Josh, I've got a question too. You mentioned hardship a little bit. Seems to me like they've tried to fit where the door would work with the driveway, that they're trying to fit to the existing site. My question is, that sounds similar, it's not quite a hardship, but it's kind of a, hey, we're trying to fit the constraints of the site. Is it acceptable to kind of think about it that way as we're thinking about the front door?
Yes, sir, and so, and without getting way off into like BZA training territory and that kind of stuff, the reason we do this is a special exception and not a variance. So a variance that has been misused in most of the state over the years. A variance has to be related to topography and geographic conditions. That's the only thing the state law allows a variance for. And for boards of zoning appeals. We have it as a special exception, and what that does is it allows the board of zoning appeals to look at it in its context and say, and because you see our findings of fact, they're basically like, is this going to cause a problem? Is this going to adversely affect anybody? And if you guys feel like it looks okay and everything works with it, then you're free to approve it. Variances, as you know, are much more limited, and if there's another conceivable option where you don't, a variance isn't necessary, the BZA pretty much is compelled to require that. These are done as special exceptions to really give you guys a whole lot more freedom to look at it, have a public hearing on it, see if anybody's worried about it, and then if you feel like it fits the neighborhood and will work and meets the intent of the code, then you can approve it.
That answers my question. So it's really, our judgment is significant.
Yes, sir.
The fact it's the front doors.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's why it says that as a special exception to that rule for those design standards. If it was a variance, you really just couldn't even approve it, right? But also as a special exception, you're looking at those findings of fact. Will it adversely affect the neighborhood? Is it gonna cause health issues, safety issues, those kinds of things? And if you find it's not gonna do those things, you can approve it.
So based on that, everybody's really quiet, so I'm looking around. Based on that and the site constraints, I think it's acceptable what they've done. So I would make a motion number one. Number one, yes.
With exceptions.
Yes.
That means.
Yes, what that means.
I'll second.
I got a motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I think this next item comes up, I'm accusing myself, so I'm going to step away. So I'm going to recuse myself on this next item. Yes.
1, 2, 3, we're still running.
Yes, ma'am.
The next item on the agenda is Long Hollow Baptist Church is requesting parking, and parking service request is made. Parking is located at 3251 Long Hollow Pike. So,
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is an administrative appeal, so the board's kind of getting the gamut with this meeting, but the administrative appeal, essentially what this is this item has been submitted to the staff, and the staff has concluded that there were aspects of it that could be improved administratively, that it didn't comply with the letter of the county zoning requirements. So this is a piece of property that's located right near the intersection of New Shackle Island Road and Long Hollow Pike. It's currently zoned rural residential. Property owner is listed on the assessor site as TennesseeHomesites.com. Applicant is Long Hollow Baptist Church. That was what I was on the application. I think they call themselves Long Hollow Church now on the sign. One thing to note is that as you see, the applicant is different than the property owner. The church does have a lease agreement which they provided to the county, and it was in the packet. They have a lease agreement with the owner, Tennessee Homesites. So what they're seeking to do is to appeal a staff determination that a proposed off-site parking plan does not comply with the county zoning resolution requirements. So when we reviewed this application, we did cite 2 separate sections of the county zoning resolution in our denial of the application. That's chapter 11, section 1102, subsection C and D4. So those are the 2 sections. What that language there, and of course, obviously, I'll be going through what the language says, but what it says in general is that off-site parking must be within 500 feet of the entrance to the use being served, number 1, and that the parking surface must be asphalt, concrete, or other hard surface dustless material. So reviewing the application, we felt like those 2 requirements were not met. The parking plan, which I'll show here shortly, indicates approximately 333 parking spaces by my math. The individual parking aisles are numbered on there, so that was the number I came up with. Adjoining property owners were notified by certified mail when it was advertised in the paper on December 28th, 2023. This is an aerial of that subject property. This is another area just kind of pulling back to show the context. You see, Long Hall Church is to the east and the south. You see the extensive parking in place at this time. One thing to note is that this subject property, which you see here, is vacant. Below it, to the south, you see the parking that is there. Madam Chairman, I believe you're on the board of zoning appeals several years ago. That also was approved as overflow parking some years ago by the board of zoning appeals. That was back before my time. I started here in 2018. I think it may have been approved in 2017 sometime around there. And so this is the public notice that was placed in the newspaper, as I mentioned, on December the 28th, advertised tonight's hearing. This is the parking plan. Impossible to see up there, I understand, but I did try to zoom in as much as I could. You see the parking aisles are indicated there. The numbers, those indicate the number of spaces in each aisle. Again, the number I came up with was 333 total. It's proposed to be gravel surface, and I'll get into that here in just a second. There's a clarification letter that was sent from with the application by CSDG, who represents the church on this, where what they did was they went through the county's off-site parking requirements and provided answers to each one to discuss how they addressed the letter or in their the intent of the county's requirements. This is the zoning compliance form that they turned in. You see it says it was proposed off-site parking, and we noted that it does not meet county zoning requirements, as I mentioned earlier, in two different areas related to the service and the distance from the church itself. So this is the specific language that I'm talking about here for chapter 1102, subsection C, off-site parking requirements. What it says is off-street parking space accessory to any permitted use may be located on a zone lot, so a lot of record basically, other than the same zone lot as such use. So what it's saying is you can have parking on somebody else's property, provided that the following requirements are met. First is that such spaces are not located within a residential or agricultural district unless the use is permitted or permitted upon appeal within such district. And so it is located in the rural residential zone, and the Long Hall Church use is approved upon appeal. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved a conditional use permit for it many years ago. Number 2, there's no way to arrange the spaces on the same zone lot as such use. They indicated that it would not be possible to do that, to add these spaces anywhere else on their property. 3, such spaces are located to draw a minimum of vehicular traffic. They indicated that was what they had tried to do, and there will be folks from CSDG that can explain that if there are questions. 4, as which I have highlighted, such spaces shall be located no further than 500 feet from the main entrance of the use being served. And so when we measured it, and I'll show it, it's about 1,000 feet from the farthest parking spaces to the front entrance. The applicant, I believe what they're essentially saying in their application is they're trying to meet the spirit of the requirement, and there's no way they can get the parking within 500 feet of the entrance. And so they're trying to meet the spirit of the requirement by having a shuttle. There'll be a shuttle that will take people from this parking lot to the church. 5 spaces are in the same ownership, unless there's a executed document, basically, which is what they've done. And lastly, a site plan will need to be submitted. So if this is approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, they will need to file a site plan with the Planning Commission after any BZA approval. And so, as I mentioned, I don't know if you can see it up there very easily, but I've kind of put a pin where the furthest west parking spaces would be, and then measured to the door of the church, or at least one of the entrances to the church there, and it came to about 1,008 feet, give or take 1,079. So, as I mentioned, that doesn't comply with the letter. It's the BZA can hear what they have to say and see if the intent is being is part of this. All right, so that was the first thing that was cited in the denial. Second is surfacing and border barriers requirements of our zoning code related to parking. And what it says there is all off-street parking areas, with the exception of 1 or 2 family dwellings, some houses. Every other parking area except for a house is required to be asphalt, concrete, or other hard surface dustless material, and so constructed to provide for adequate drainage for both on and off site and to prevent the release of dust. And so, as I mentioned, they're proposing a gravel surface. That doesn't meet the letter of what's called for here. The representative from CSCG may discuss some of the things that they would like to do. There's ways to treat gravel and that kind of thing to keep dust down, and to see if the BZA is going to accept something like that. The proposed parking surface again, they don't know they're up front, but they do intend for it to be a gravel parking surface. So administrative appeals, I'm not going to read all this, but this is just where you guys are allowed to hear administrative appeals if somebody disagrees with the staff's interpretation. State law, this is where they have the right to file an appeal. Here's where you guys have the authority to hear. This is the administrative appeal that they turned in, and what it says is basically they're requesting to appeal the first issue I noted, which is 500 foot from the entrance. The parking can't be further than that. And what they said is that the church currently utilizes a shuttle service for the adjacent overflow parking located on that lot to the south that I noted. They're requesting that the 500 foot requirement be based on the shuttle service location that serves the church during high volume services. And they indicate that the overflow parking area will be within 500 feet of the shuttle pickup. And 2, they're requesting to appeal the determination related to parking surface. And they indicate that it's essentially it's an overflow lot that's only going to be used during high volume church services. And is not proposed for daily use, and they're proposed to use some other dust control solution. I'll let them talk about what they're proposed to do, because I really don't know. It just put something on the gravel to keep dust from being kicked up. There's been some questions we received about the flood status of this property. Again, if it was on the big screen, it would be a little bit better, they're more easy to see, but back about 20 years ago, give or take, there was a letter of map revision that was filed with FEMA to take this out of the floodplain as a conditional letter of map revision of Colmar. And so that was recently, after all these years, approved by FEMA. We received a letter from FEMA's office that basically what that letter says is this area where this parking is going to go is now not in the floodplain. It's not in the floodway anymore. Essentially, there was a flood study that was done, and that was the basis of the original Colmar that was submitted years ago, was that the new bridge that was installed on Long Mile Pike there changed the flow of water and reduced the amount of floodway area. You just can't build anything in the floodway. And so FEMA's final letter of map revision did confirm that, and they were allowed to do fill activity to take it out of the flood plain. And so that white area that I've got circled there is basically where the parking lot is going to go. It's no longer located in the floodplain, per FEMA. We went out and took pictures. one morning, here, a week or so ago, of the subject property. It's just this area back in there behind the pickup truck. It's just kind of a scrubby gravel area at this point. This is looking back where the intersection toward Beach High School back there. So, Madam Chairman, there's example motions on the screen. This is a little bit of a complicated case. The example motions on the screen are, number one, to uphold the initial staff determination that it doesn't comply with the county zoning resolution, what they're proposing. Number two is to overturn the staff determination and to concur with the applicant's assertion that it does comply. And three, and I'm just putting here as an example, you guys can concur in part. You know, for instance, you could say that the distance to the parking area is met because of the shuttle service or whatever, while the surface itself does not meet county requirements and they need to pay. That's just an example. And so I just put that up there for thought. But that concludes my presentation, Madam Chairman. I'm Jacob, see who signed up.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Christy, no.
My name is Chrissy Miller. I am the County Commissioner for District 24, where this is located. My address is 1005 Thornhill Court in Nashville, Tennessee. I had a lot of phone calls as soon as the sign went up for the notification for this change, and I don't even know how many phone calls I got, but it was 20 plus, and they're vehemently opposed to this. I know that they came and tried to rezone this commercial before. It is zoned, rural residential, and I don't know anywhere else in the county that you can go and have a rural residential, zoning and put a parking lot. But all of my constituents are against it. They asked me to come speak against it. Also, I would like to say I trust the staff's decisions, and they determined that this does not comply with zoning code for 2 reasons, and I would ask that you guys deny this. Thank you.
And then, Madam Chairman, as I mentioned, Brad Snyder from CSDG is in attendance tonight. He didn't sign up. Brad, you didn't sign up if you want to speak.
Come on.
Thank you, Brett Snyder, CCG. Thanks, Josh, for the introduction there. Just to elaborate that, the parking distance, we're just going to comply with what's already been going on out there with the shuttle service. The church, I believe, runs 3 shuttle services during their large masses, large events. And this, again, as Josh said, is more for overflow parking during those large events. For the surface of the parking lot, we initially called that out as gravel to kind of control dust and drainage. I think what we'll be proposing is bituminous treatment surface, so it's more like a thin asphalt, basically asphalt and some stone. That should help with the dust control, prevent dust from coming up while traveling on it. It's usually more for passenger vehicles, so obviously this won't have any large vehicles on there except for passenger cars. Yeah, just be here for any questions.
I'm Dan Huddleston. I'm the operation director for Long Haul. We we got a great problem. People have moved to our area, we've embraced them, and they're coming. We're just trying to figure out a way to safely put them onto the property and give them access off the property safely. And that was one of the reasons we did Legacy Park, and just drawing people to this area, giving them a place to be and join our community. And that's what we're trying to do today.
Do you have any questions for the engineer? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? No one else, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion.
I have a question for Josh. How long is the lease on that property?
I'm gonna have to defer to Mr. Poston on that. The length of the lease.
I don't know off the top of my head. It's extended out. But I don't know right off the top. I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Hey, sorry. I don't have that in front of me. I apologize. It will be for probably, I would think, 5 to 10 years, but I don't have that in front of me to confirm that.
Yeah, I noticed the example in there was just 1 year.
The one that was submitted,
Yes. The lease that's in the packet,
okay, was it 1 year?
yeah.
The legal department took care of that.
So you're saying you already have the extension of the lease?
No, then what you have is correct.
So, I've got it pulled up on the screen right now, and I know that's probably very, very hard to read. So what it calls for, it looks like is, and to clarify, questions about the lease are totally appropriate, Madam Chairman, because the county's regulations do require a lease to be in place, in order for this situation to be approved. What it calls for is a 1-year term with automatic renewals thereafter. And so either party is allowed to give notice of termination 60 days prior to the expiration. And so it's a perpetual agreement essentially until somebody gives notice to terminate it.
They still have to come back and
Well, and with this, if the board wants to, if the board wanted to approve this, if they felt like it was appropriate, we could have them come back for a special exception and do another application. If that was the way that the board wanted to do it, if the board wanted to approve it that way, to have them come back in a couple of years.
Any more discussion? What's the will of the board?
Josh, I don't know that I remember making an exception because it's a shuttle service to meet the 500 foot.
Well, this is the first time this particular issue has come up since I've been here. Our old code that was in place previously, it was pretty much silent on what was supposed to happen in an on-site parking situation. And we ran into some issues. I don't know if, I think, Mr. Howard, I think you may have been on several years ago, but I don't know if you recall, there were some folks that wanted off-site parking on the other side of Tiger Springs Road. There was a use that was proposed. And so our current regulations try to put some bounds on where you have off-site parking, so you don't have people walking across a major road and those kinds of things to get to parking or have a mile away or something like that. This particular situation hasn't come up, since I've been here, where you've had parking quite that far away. Now, as I mentioned, though, there was off-site parking, there is still overflow parking to the south of this. And the board, I think, inferred some abilities that it had at the time to approve a conditional use permit for that. That's what the BZA did back in 2016, 2017 timeframe, the last time this situation came up. And another thing I will say is that the bituminous surface that was proposed there, wasn't included on their presentation or on their submittal, but the bituminous asphalt surface would comply with our requirements. That is a dust-free treatment. That's essentially an asphalt coating, and so that would satisfy the county requirements for parking.
But right now, it's not part of the official proposal.
Well, I mean, I think they've agreed to do it. If you guys wanted them to come back next month and revise their proposal, I think maybe a deferral might be in order to get a revised proposal from them, so they can do that. Certainly the BZA, you guys are always empowered if somebody has changed the proposal in midstream to have them come back. Absolutely.
What is the life of the bituminous? What is the life of the bituminous typical standard?
I think it would probably depend on a lot of factors, the kind of traffic that's rolling over it, that kind of thing. Truck traffic like this, probably be a long while. Heavy trucks and that kind of thing, not long at all, it'll break down pretty quick. And it would probably be dependent as well on weather, that kind of thing, some other factors. But Mr. Snyder is a civil engineer, licensed in the state of Tennessee, that could probably speak to that better than I could.
Yes, so the life expectancy for this use, I would say, is probably a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, maybe more. Like Josh said, this is going to be used with passenger vehicles. There won't be really heavy truck traffic, so I expect this to be about 3 years, and then the church would have to maintain that.
Thank you. And one more question, Josh. I know that with FEMA taking it off the floodplain, in the event that they were to have been wrong, and we were to have some enormous rain like we did in 2010, where would all of this parking lot go?
That's something that would have to be addressed. As I mentioned, one of the requirements is that they will have to file a site plan with the planning commission. And so as part of the site plan approval, we would require drainage calculations and all the information from the engineers on where this water goes. If the board of zoning is making a decision, if you guys feel like you need that information, I'll go back to what I said a little while ago. A deferral might be in order to let them get that together and bring it back to you and show you. They will certainly have to do that with the planning commission, but the board of zoning appeals, you guys can ask for that as well if you wanted to.
No, that's a little bit more discussion, I guess. I mean, I'm hearing at least two things that may require for deferral here, right? We've got the design of the dust-free lot material. I would, like to be a little more official information on that.
And one thing about that as well is that, I got the feeling that the number of parking spaces that are shown is very, very approximate. And so having a little bit more of a refined plan, since they're gonna have a surface down, and we'd have them strike it as well, we might learn more about the numbers of actual spots that are proposed and that kind of thing.
Yeah. The other thing with this type of situation and really the lease arrangement of it, I would want them to come back every 2 years if we did approve this for review, to make sure that they're continuing to meet the requirements that we do have. So I think that's another reason I feel like maybe a deferral is in order to gain a little more information regarding those things, as well as what we were talking about before, right?
In the event of a water flood?
Yes.
Yes.
What can you say?
I believe you were wanting to, he thought a deferral was in order, yeah.
Motion for deferral.
I didn't hear a motion, yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to defer
For deferral, 30 days. 30 days.
30 days, I would think, would give them plenty of time to submit the information they're requesting.
What information, did you say what information you wanted?
Yeah, the surface of the lot. We need more details on the design of that, I guess the specs. Expected life. You want some more on the,
I have a motion for deferral, do I have a second?
hold on just a second. Another reason for the deferral. Let me turn mine off. You can talk. Do you want any more information on
Yes, more information on the floodplain determination.
We can, somebody's got too many mics on right now.
Somebody.
But what we can do is, a preliminary grading plan, drainage calculations, those kinds of things. If that's along the lines of what you guys would be looking for, that would be totally appropriate to ask for. Sure.
Second. Let's see, was there anything else? For continuation type arrangement, would this need to be resubmitted, is that?
I need to,
I need to look at the code on that and see, I mean, I think, if in approving this, the board wanted to require, this to be, to come back to the board of zoning appeals every 2 years or something like that, I think you could do that as a condition of approval, if it was approved. Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
I would like to add to that discussion. I would, if we're deferring, we don't have to discuss this in our hearing.
Well, we don't have to make a decision tonight. But I mean, as far as discussion, discuss it.
If, so the lease agreement is every year, correct?
It looks like the way that it's worded, I'm not an attorney or anything like that, but it looks like what it says is it's for a 1 year automatically renewing term. It's a perpetual lease agreement that renews every year. Automatically with 60, and that can be terminated with 60 days notice.
Well, I feel like upholding the original staff determination is fine, based on what they applied for. But I think I'm in agreement. I think I would like to make a motion to defer to next month.
I have a motion to defer, do I have a second?
So,
I have a second, all in favor?
Um,
Opposed? Motion,
Motion to defer carried 30 days.
I don't have any more business coming before the board, Madam Chairman.
You got one
No, ma'am.
since there's no more business, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
Second, we're adjourned. All in favor?
Since we all voted, I guess we're